Good evening, everyone. If you made it to this video, congratulations. You're on to aircraft qualification. Congrats for finishing Common Core. So at the end of Common Core, you get a chance to select what airframe you want to fly. Depending on where you fall on that order of merit list will increase your chances of getting the airframe you want. Since I'm a medevac pilot, also a 67 Juliet, I knew that I was going to fly UH-60 mics. So I didn't really select. I knew what I was getting because the UH-60 mic is the only medevac platform in the U.S. Army. Yes, there are cases of CASEVAC. The Chinook does the CASEVAC mission. There's even been stories of Apaches doing CASEVAC. As crazy as that sounds, but the medevac mission falls within the UH-60 mic. So that's what I got. For those of you who will select, it's a big day to find out if you get your aircraft or not. For me, the surprise came down to my duty station location. Being that me and my family had just come from Germany, I really wanted to stay on the continental United States and focus on bringing up my family. We loved it in Germany. It was awesome, but we wanted to stay stateside for a little bit. So I actually got my third choice. I wanted Hunter Army Airfield first, Campbell second. Those places were both filled, so I went with Fort Riley. My big thing was I wanted to be in a combat aviation brigade to get that experience. And I wanted to be CONUS. So Fort Riley fit all of those parameters. So in this video, we're going to talk about Black Hawk's ground school. I would love to talk about all of the aircrafts and all of the aircraft qualifications, but obviously I'm a Black Hawk pilot, so I'm qualified to talk about the Black Hawk course. Maybe in future videos I can have some of my buddies who did complete the other aircraft qualification courses on here to discuss their story. So this video is going to start with ground school because that's the first thing you do. The cool thing about Black Hawks is the academics are all front-loaded in the first month. You just cram it and get it all done in the first month of the course. And then from then on out, after you complete after you complete academics and you move on to the contact phase, that's it. You're flying from then on out and all you do is go to flight line. It's freaking awesome. I love that about the UH-60 mic course. So, let's get into the first exam. Well, actually, let me just tell you guys this. You're going to take 3 exams in ground school. And now I'll get into the first exam. So the first class you're going to receive will be on, it's an introductory class, so you'll go over where things are located on the UH-60 mic. And just basic things like the average weight of a UH-60 mic, the diameter of the blade span, the where certain things are located, like where the FCCs are located, where the EGIs are located, where the batteries are located, engine, hydraulic deck, all of that in that class. And then the very next thing will be the flight management display system. So you'll learn how to use what we call the MFDs, or the multi-function displays. So you have 4 of them in the UH-60, and they display your PFDs and your maps and all of that. So you'll get a class on how to use those and how to change those and how to set it up exactly the way you want it when you're flying the Black Hawk. The next block of instructions is the flight management system. So in the UH-72 Lakota, you had the Garmin 430. Well, in the Black Hawk, you have the FMS, or the flight management system. The flight management does a lot more than just navigation. It does calculations. I mean, it does everything. It's more than just a GPS. But you'll learn how to use the FMS in that block of instructions. And then the final block of instruction will be crew station. So that covers where all of the buttons and the switches and stuff from your seat in the cockpit, and what you need to know and how to control things. So like with the collective, for instance, you have way more controls on the collective than in the UH-72. You have way more controls on the cyclic. Even the pedals have micro switches on them, and that class covers all of those special things about the Black Hawk. So yeah, the introductory class, flight management system, flight management display system, and crew station. That's your first exam, and I would say this was one of the easier exams of the three, maybe even possibly the easiest. Wasn't that hard. I mean, obviously you have to study. It was easy because I studied every night, but as long as you study, the check on learning questions, that's what I prioritize. Just every PowerPoint, you download it on your computer and check on learning. If you hit those to the point where you know them off the top of your head and why the answer is the answer, you should have no problem getting over a 90 on the exam. Okay, excuse me. Exam 2. This is the hardest exam. So in this exam, you will cover engines, hydraulics, powertrain, which is the transmission and how the transmission does what it does, and then the automatic flight controls, the autopilot system. So the engine class is an in-depth class, and I think it spans for like 2 or 3 days on the 2 turbine engines, the T700 GE 701 Delta engines. You will basically know every single component on this engine from this class, and then you'll get a very in-depth hydraulic class on how the UH-60 mic uses its robust hydraulic system. It's a very robust system with 3 hydraulic pumps, and you will learn the ins and outs of exactly how it works in those classes. And then the powertrain, that's I would say engines and hydraulics are the most failed area of that exam. Powertrain, study a little bit. The automatic flight controls, obviously, study that too. But engines and hydraulics are going to be where your brunt of your studying is going to be. Again, this is the hardest exam of the 3 exams. To go along with this, you will be starting Cockpit Trainers during the week that you're doing this exam. So you're not only studying for hydraulics and engines, but you're also trying to learn how to do the startup for the UH-60 mic. So whenever I went through and I was in this section of the ground school, the guy that taught us hydraulics, freaking awesome guy, knew what the hell he was talking about, but he had a very thick Caribbean accent. Very thick. So you had to really, really, really pay attention to what he was saying, because although he knew his shit and he knew what he was talking about, again, that accent is kind of hard to understand at times. Don't know if he's still there, but just heads up on that. So exam 3, you will cover malfunction analysis. This class is like where you learn how to diagnose EPs on the UH-60 mic while using what we call FRCs. FRCs are like a deck of checklists that are made specifically for emergency procedures. They're pretty cool and colorful, and you flip through them depending on the emergency procedure, and you can identify it and then go off of the checklist. Now, that being said, certain EPs are memorization. So, dual engine failure, single engine failure, there's things you have to do by memory, but there's also a lot of EPs that you can pause, open up your FRCs, and do everything from the FRC. So that's malfunction analysis. You'll learn how to do that in that class. For this exam, you'll also be expected to learn the electrical system of the UH-60 mic, the fuel pump system of the UH-60 mic, and the ESIS and the anti-vibration control system. So the ESIS and the anti-vibration control system, those are kind of thrown in there at the last minute, and there's not a lot to them. The ESIS is a standby instrument that you'll see in the center of the UH-60 mic. I mean, there's not much to it. I mean, if you can read a freaking HSI, you should have no problem reading an ESIS. And then the anti-vibration control system, it keeps the UH-60 mic from vibrating you to death. So pretty cut and dry there. Now, I would say that this is one of the easier exams. It'd be a tie between the first exam and this one for the easiest. The second exam during ground school is no doubt the hardest, for sure. I will say the third exam can be a little hard just because during this same week they're going to do a check off for your startup for the UH-60 mic and the Cockpit Trainer. So you're also trying to learn that and be ready for your check off. Now, the guy that taught malfunction analysis whenever I went through, freaking awesome guy. Broke everything down super, super simple. So like when you thought your teacher for the turbine engine class made everything seem really complicated, one day we went in there and he was just like, hey, look, turbine engines are super simple, super easy. Just remember this: a turbine engine sucks, squeezes, bangs, and blows. That's all you got to remember. And if you really think about it, he's right. That's all it does. So really good instructor. And then, yeah, that's the last exam. So you'll have a check-off for the Cockpit Trainer. Now, a lot of you guys are probably watching this right now going, wow, the Cockpit Trainer is easy. You just read from the checklist, right? That's how it was in the UH-72. That's not how it is in the UH-60 mic. There is a lot of detailed steps in the checklist that you have to know from memory. They're expecting you to know this from memory. So when you get to flight controls check, there are certain steps, certain switches, certain movements, certain things you have to say that aren't in the checklist, that when you see flight checks control, first flight of the day, you have to do all these things from memory. So to go along with remembering all of those detailed procedures, you also have to know the warnings, cautions, and notes by memory. And you have to state them every time they come up in the checklist. And there's a ton of them. Now, whenever I did my check off, I freaking knew that crap like the back of my hand. I went in there, did really well on my check off, and then whenever I got to low heliport and started going to low every single day, met my IP out there, as I would recite the warnings, cautions, and notes as I did my check, he's like, hey man, you don't have to say all that crap. I get it. You know them. I don't want to hear that crap. It takes too long to say all that stuff. Now, that was my IP. I know some IPs like to hear it. Fortunately for me, I never had that experience. I may have had one or two every once in a while to be like, hey, what's the notice associated with that? So you always want to stay sharp on those. You never know what kind of IP you're going to fly with. You never, when you get to your unit, you never know what PC you're going to fly with. You know what I mean? So it's good to stay sharp on that. That way you always look squared away. So yeah, that's that. Now, this is going to close out this video. Really short to the point. I mean, it's ground school, not a whole lot to it. The next video I will cover will be contact phase, and that is the first phase where you fly a UH-60 Black Hawk. So stay tuned, and thank you guys for watching.